Hello and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast. This is Jill Bodensteiner, Director of Athletics at St. Joseph's University. As leaders, it's really important that we're clear regarding our goals and our vision and how those integrate into the greater university goals. We also need to collectively create a strategy and a culture that are going to help us reach our goals. This is an evolving exercise that requires an openness to continuous improvement. That's why I follow the One Question Leadership Podcast, because I love learning as much as I possibly can from my colleagues that helps me be the best that I can be. So my message for the day, keep learning, keep leading.
Greetings, this is Ty Brown, and welcome to the One Question Leadership Podcast, where we highlight executive and organizational leadership. Be sure to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at OneQ Leadership. Our guest today is Carol Bonner. Carol is the Associate Registrar for Athletic Certification and Eligibility at Texas Tech. Greetings, Carol. Thanks for joining us.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Yes, ma'am. Now, you've been in there at Texas Tech for 10 years in a similar type role, right?
Mm-hmm. Same role.
Same role, right? Almost 20 years in the industry. Before Texas Tech, you were at Robert Morris.
Yes, the one
in a similar role.
Yes, the one in Pittsburgh, not in Chicago. Yeah.
Okay, the one in Pittsburgh, not in Chicago, right?
Yeah.
You're also currently serving as Staff Senate President there at Texas Tech, which is, I think, is a major role. Shows how much they respect your voice and your leadership there.
Yes.
The first question is, what is an Associate Registrar for Athletic Certification and Eligibility? I can make assumptions based on the title, but I want you to explain to me what it is from your position in the chair doing the job.
Okay. So most people don't know what that means when I say either I'm in athletic certification or I'm the certification officer. Mm-hmm. And basically what I tell everyone is my job is to look at all of our student athletes' academic records. And then based on NCAA, Big 12 in my case, and Texas Tech rules, I determine whether or not they're eligible for competition. So that is the short answer synopsis of what it is that I do every day.
Okay, and I'm going to ask you what the long answer is in a minute. But so, the NCAA has its eligibility center, and so that's coming into college. Mm-hmm. And so do they get past that first and then the records come to you, or are you just the people who are already enrolled in Texas Tech and you look at their stuff as they progress through
all of the types of student athletes? So we have the initial, we have continuing, and we have transfer. So initial, thanks to the Eligibility Center, is pretty cut and dry. We, from the NCAA perspective, we take their certification there, and then we say, we make sure that they're enrolled full time, whatever other requirements they need to meet as incoming student athletes, and then we'll certify them that way. But the major chunk of the incoming students is done through the Eligibility Center. Continuing, that's the meat and potatoes of what we do here. So, I wouldn't say meat and potatoes. It's all, we do it all.
Right. Yeah.
Right. No one group is more important than the other. But we, when I say looking at their academic records, that's looking at, their grades, GPAs, those kinds of things, and then applying the NCAA Big 12 legislation to those. Then transfers, we have another process for evaluating transfer eligibility.
Okay. All right. Which is excellent. You have a staff of, how many people do you work with that are responsible for this area?
That's a bit of a loaded question. Based on how we do certification here at Tech, we probably have, on the direct athletic certification staff, we have me, and then I have an assistant registrar, a unit coordinator who does most of our day-to-day processing, and then we have a student assistant as well.
Okay.
Our entire certification team, as I like to call it, is probably somewhere between 35 to 40 folks, depending on who is designated within our colleges to provide our certification documents. So that is very specific to Texas Tech. That's not an overarching thing. I don't know that two schools in this nation do certification the same way, but our colleges are responsible for determining our the applicability of our courses. We train them, we educate them. but it starts in our colleges. And so we have a lot of contacts there. So our entire process takes a village for sure.
When you say the applicability, meaning like, will this course count in terms of what the NCAA considers something that they can use to move on to the next, to be considered a junior, senior on the way to graduation type situation?
So what we do is there are lots and lots and lots of weeds to this.
Okay.
So I'm trying to step back from those a little bit. But the NCAA does have requirements for eligibility, essentially based on the number of full-time terms you've attended an institution of higher education. So if you went to another institution for 2 full-time terms, then you came here, you're at 2 full-time terms. And then we add on as you go. So there are different requirements for different numbers of full-time terms that you have completed. And then we look at all of the information and take the totality of your circumstances as a student athlete, and then we'll apply whichever legislation applies to your situation and see if you've met those requirements. So there are times when courses need to be applicable to the designated program the student has. And then as they progress through their collegiate career, those change a little bit. And then we're determining whether or not you've met those requirements.
Is there a formula or algorithm, or is there some subjectivity to determining something?
No subjectivity is what it is. Is the course applicable to the program? Have they met the number of hours they need to meet per term between 2 terms, the percentage of degree that they have to earn, the GPA that's required? It's the legislation is the legislation, and what's required of that student at that particular point in time is what's required.
Yeah. And you've been at Texas Tech for 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
The legislation that guides in terms of what you do, has that changed much over the 10 years? Here
and there. The basic concepts, no. But there has been, with everything else that's changing, there have been some changes throughout that time. But the basic 6 and those basic types of requirements are still the same.
Still the same.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting. So you're painting the picture for us here that are not educated on this position. So in my mind, you are looking at Johnny Thompson, these are the classes Johnny took, this many credits, and now he's going into this year. I mean, it's all a spreadsheet and columns and rows.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, man.
Yep.
And so, do your eyes ever get crossed when you're looking at this stuff all day? Or
And that is why we have so many people as a part of the village, so to speak. Another thing I wanted to mention when we talk about this position in general, at least here at Texas Tech, is it is outside of the athletic department.
Okay.
But 98% of what I do is athletics. And that is because for checks and balances purposes, I don't talk to student athletes. I don't communicate with the coaching staff. So my main contacts are in our athletics academics area and our compliance area. So that's to prevent that undue influence on any of the decisions, because I'm the one who ultimately signs that eligibility report and says, yes, these student athletes are eligible to compete, or no, they are not.
Ooh-wee, that responsibility, huh?
And again, that is why we have so many people a part of the village. We have someone who prepares the documents in our colleges. We have a double check within the colleges. We have in athletics academics, the athletic academic advisor looks at the documentation. Then we have one person who looks at all of the student athletes, and then it comes to us. So we have a lot of checks along the way to help ensure the accuracy of the eligibility. And then we certify all of our student athletes. And so I and the assistant registrar both independently do our certification. We get together and review our numbers, make sure we're on the same page, and then we meet with athletics to see what what they have, essentially. And so we compare consistently, constantly, comparing any issues that arise. We'll talk through them, discuss them, make sure we're all on the same page before I sign that document.
Yeah, that's super interesting. When you say the village and the people who are in the individual colleges around campus,
Mm-hmm.
are they just looking at the stuff relative to the history department classes that this person had to take, or
Yes.
is that what that means?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And then, okay, so they do their due diligence. And that's, I imagine that's just a part of someone's responsibility within that college, right?
Yes,
It's not
correct.
their full time. It's not their whole thing. It's just a part
Yes.
of their
Yes.
responsibility. So then they pass it up to you, and then you review their work. I mean, it's been 10 years now. Do you no, okay, if it's coming from chemistry, I know for sure that the work is good, so we're good. Or then you just review everything anyway because it's all important?
Well, because of the way that we're structured at Tech, the majority of the review happens with the athletics academic staff.
Oh,
We
okay.
train, and we kind of do a tag team train between athletic certification and athletics, but we're all on the same page about what those documents should be, or what those requirements are. And so everybody's on the same page about what it is. This certification office could be different elsewhere. I know it's different elsewhere, but we don't necessarily go in and vet it from the academic perspective.
Okay.
We say, okay, these are the documents. They've already gone through 4 different people. This is what we're going to use. And then we're going to apply the legislation at that point from our perspective. So that's the majority of what we do here.
Yeah, super interesting. How much of this apparatus was in place 10 years ago when you arrived at Texas Tech?
Oh, almost all of it.
Okay.
So when I came here, it had been 17 years since Tech had a major violation. And I don't mean technical major, but it was a major violation.
Right.
Where there were lots of things that weren't great that happened at this institution. And so this is all public knowledge. And so they kind of revamped everything. And the certification officer that I replaced, she was here that entire 17 years. So when I say how we function at Texas Tech from a certification perspective, a lot of people look at me like, what? People who know what this is, but we've lived it. So, and we being the folks who were here 27 years ago, they lived it. And so they put all of these resources in place to ensure that we never ended up back in that spot.
Wow.
So
Okay.
In 30 years, there's only been 2 certification officers here.
Yeah. What is the Carol Bonner influence over the last 10 years? Is there anything that since you've been there, we've leaned in on this part of the process a little more or anything like that?
That is a great question. I would say the foundation was solid.
Okay.
So I didn't have to change too much, but I would say that I have kind of led the way in making us less paper dependent, making us more electronic, making us utilize technology a lot more. We don't utilize a degree audit system like some institutions do.
Okay.
But we used to have like physical paper, and there's just paper everywhere.
Wow.
And we've gotten away from that. If I had another few minutes to think about that, I'm sure
Okay.
there are things that
No, I mean that's major too. How long did that take? Because of everybody wants to be more efficient, but then you got to break a bunch of old habits too,
Yes.
in order to people to get to digital and to trust digital to be able to move forward. Tell me about that process.
Interestingly enough, we just in January rolled out all of our documents that we need. So there are tons of forms that folks fill out. We rolled all that out in one spot in January.
So it took you 10 years.
10 years. For a number of reasons. A number of factors came into play, but everything came together at the right time. Kaylin Bednarz is on my staff. She has been a tremendous addition, and she spearheaded that in conjunction with one of our IT folks. but it took her, she's been here for almost 3 years, and it took her that long to get it there too. So it has been, okay, we're ready. We're going to do it, but we're going to get this other technology.
Right.
So just wait on it. But now we're not going to get that technology. But we're going to get this technology so then you can do it. So it's just been a lot of start and stop and all that. But we're finally there. It was one of the best days.
But you got it implemented, right?
When I sat there, we were unveiling that.
I think it's pretty significant, right?
Yes.
10 years is how long it takes when they're like expanding highways, right? And so, you know what I mean? Like there's always traffic on the freeway because they're always working on it. But you finally get it done, and now there's like so many more lanes and things can move so much more faster, right?
That's a great analogy. Yes.
I think that's an excellent thing.
Yes.
So the people that are on your staff, not the greater village, I think you said 2 or 3 people that work with you.
Mm-hmm.
I guess they report to you, for the lack of a better word. Were they there when you arrived, or did you have to identify and hire these people? And was that full apparatus there, or have you expanded that staff since you've been there?
No, the full apparatus was not here. So when I came on, we had the unit coordinator position was there. I've since hired Anne-Marie Maldonado. She's been on our staff for probably, I want to say 5 or 6 years. So she's been riding with me the majority of this time.
Mm-hmm.
She's great. She's wonderful. She keeps our wheels turning every day. But when I first got here, she was here. We had a student assistant, and then I think maybe 5 years ago, we added the assistant registrar position.
Okay.
So I had to go and find that person out. Anne-Marie was here in the unit. She was here at Tech in the registrar's office, but she came over to athletic certification a little bit after I was here. But the newest position was the assistant registrar.
So you had to come in, do the work for a few years, and then present a case to whoever you report to. Hey, we need another person.
Well,
is that how it works? Or tell me how that works.
It didn't happen.
That might
like
be
that.
Just the way corporate works. You know what I mean? Corporate's like, we need more staff. Right?
Yeah, actually, we were having some challenges in the transfer space where we weren't getting transfer evaluations or course equivalencies back in a timely manner, and that was institution wide.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was raised by some folks in athletics. At the same, and kind of really heighten the awareness for the institution. So as the institution was working on the issue, another recommendation was to have an assistant registrar position whose main purpose was to kind of focus on that transfer space. And in support of our transfer evaluation office. And so it all kind of came together at the same time. We do much better. I don't want anybody to think we're not doing well here, but it was something that we saw, we addressed. We're doing much better with our turnaround time. And that position has kind of morphed a little bit where it's not as much transfer, but it's a much smoother process now. And she's able to do other things like unveil our dashboard with all of our forms. So it didn't necessarily come from me. It came from some challenges that we were having, but we've righted the ship, and that position was instrumental in doing that.
No, I think that's excellent. So athletics pointed out, hey, we're trying to get people in here, and it's just not happening fast enough, right? Mm-hmm. So they point that out, and then the school looks at it and says, you know what, that's just not athletics. Actually, we're having this problem all over campus. Mm-hmm. And so what they do is pretty much just relook at the whole structure and say, maybe we need to provide support so that we can get that specific thing done at a high level. And that person has been with you in that role, you said 4 or 5 years?
Caitlin's been here for almost 3.
Okay. And so did her job just become even more important as transfer has opened up and the portal is immediate? And mm-hmm. She's like studying NCAA encyclopedia, you know what I mean? Because tell me about that, like, because it seems like that role is becoming more important, or is it? Talk to me about that. You know
I wouldn't say it is
not more important, but it seems like there's a lot more going on here.
There's a lot more going on, and I wish it were a joke that if there were an NCAA encyclopedia that she would be reading it, but she probably she would be reading it.
Right.
If it
Exactly.
existed. I'm grateful that we have that position in place.
Okay.
Because she has been instrumental in kind of following the changes in the legislation. Our compliance office has been great with keeping us abreast of what's going on in those changes. So we're lucky there as well. But yes, I'm grateful that we have that position that is kind of, she lives in transfer a little bit more.
Like, has it changed? Has what she does changed over the last 8 months or something when like, or a transfer is a transfer? I mean, talk to me about that. It seems like there's more transfers maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, the transfer is still a transfer,
Okay.
but you just have to take into account the different types of things that are changing. It might be one way one day and a different way the next day.
Oh, yeah.
And so we're both responsible for knowing that and responding to it. But it's great to have someone who lives in that transfer. Say, I wouldn't say her job has changed much.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe more. She's our contact who enters some of the stuff in the portal, so she probably has more of that. And definitely, the portal is a brand new thing, so that job has changed, or that part of the job responsibilities has changed. But other than that, a transfer is a transfer, and we're both responsible for making sure that we're aware of what the legislation is.
In terms of transfer and transfer portal in general, my understanding, I played football 20-some years ago, and then I worked at the Football Coaches Association, and you would see a lot more transferring in and out with basketball. Now it's kind of widespread throughout college athletics. You definitely see a lot more in football. And so does that, and you may have just addressed this, but people coming and going, I guess the formula is still the formula. So what did you take there? What are you going to take here? Or what do you take here now you're leaving? Do you talk to, there's two questions in my brain that aren't coming out right. The first one is like, how has that affected the role? And you may have answered that, but if you didn't, just let me know. A, the transfer portal and the more comings and goings of student athletes. And then B, do you talk to other certification officers at other schools when somebody wants to transfer somewhere, or is that not part of the role? If those questions make sense.
So I'll take the second part first. We don't normally. Any guidance that is given to a student athlete is given by athletics. So again, we don't talk to student athletes. We don't talk to coaches. We're not in an advisory role by any means. So we don't necessarily
talk to other.
For us, it is what it is. And that's very much what this position is for the most part. It is what it is. Did you do what you needed to do to be eligible, or did you not? And so when we talk about the portal, all we're doing is entering the information for the institution. If from an academic or eligibility perspective, for any issues that come up or conversation that needs to happen concerning something that's in the portal, that will all be done through athletics compliance.
So the other school that a student athlete is transferring from, they are relying on the information that you put into the data that you've gathered on this person's eligibility.
The other institution is, yes.
Yeah. Okay, excellent. Right. Which is another accountability piece for us to make sure our jobs are done well. And then the other part of the first question was about with the increase in transfers and people coming in for a year and leaving, how has that impacted things in general, or has it?
I wouldn't say from this seat. I wouldn't say that it's
had a major impact.
Completely changed things. The landscape is definitely changing.
Okay. And
we had more transfers, and we'll have more 444s and more graduate transfers and those kinds of things. So we're trying to we do see an increase in those, but we're not necessarily, I don't feel like, bogged down with the change. It's kind of just, you see increases, but if a basketball team, I'll say, needs five student wants to bring in 5 student athletes, I have to look at all 5 of those student athletes. The transfers are going to take me longer. I might need additional documentation for the transfers, but there's still 5 student athletes.
Yeah, the process is the process, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Okay, and I asked a few questions before we wrap.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is the staff you mentioned that work with you and the greater village. Like, would you consider yourself a team? Well, I guess you're all working towards the same goal of
Yes.
making sure people are eligible and certified to come and play college athletics. Do you have a like leadership or management philosophy on how you deal with people and how you make sure everybody's operating from the same book type situation?
Yeah, I think my philosophy really is to, number one, communicate.
Mm-hmm.
I think communication is absolutely key. We try to make sure that we give as much information as we can to athletics. We hope that we get the same amount of information back. Um, Knowledge about changes to legislation, injunctions, all the things that are happening, that's critical for us to be able to do what we need to do. As far as this in the institution, like the village is concerned, is I tell them sometimes, or in the training, I'll say, this isn't rocket science, but it's close. And so if there are times, and I try to tell them, there are times that athletics and athletic certification don't agree. We talk about that all the time. We talk through these issues. So understand that we are here to support you. I don't ever want them to feel like they're on an island. We want them to feel comfortable in coming to us and saying, hey, either I don't understand this, can you make this make sense? Or even if they have to say, we made a mistake or something, we need to have that community team feeling where they can come and we can all talk through something, communicate well, and just try to establish that sense of comfort, because it's not easy stuff and we're all trying to navigate it, and it's a big deal, and so we want you to be able to do it right the first time instead of asking for forgiveness after, because sometimes there just isn't forgiveness,
Right.
And so that's my philosophy. I want my people, especially since we're kind of over here, not in the day-to-day of an athletic department, and some of my people have come from that space. Work-life balance is really important. They work hard, we work hard, we're very cyclical, so our busy times are probably early August through APR, and then we ramp back up January, most of February, and then we've got GSR that we're kind of working through now. So we're very cyclical, but I really want them to take care of themselves first, because if you have healthy people who feel valued, who feel like they can have rest and peace, then that's what they bring to the job. And especially with the people that I have, they work really hard. I mean, being staff senate president, I would not be able to do it if I didn't have the staff that I do, both in numbers and who they are as workers and as people. And so them being able to take care of themselves makes us better as a whole, and it allows me to take advantage of opportunities for growth as well. So taking care of my people, I'm a very people first kind of person. So taking care of my people and communicating and creating an environment where we can talk and we can communicate easily without all that tension is really important to me.
Right. It's excellent communications, support, and resources is what
Mhm.
it sounds like in terms of how you can help the people around you make sure they're doing a job at a high level and feel valued. I got two questions here.
Mhm.
First question is, you mentioned APR and GSR, and I'm surprised I didn't bring that up before. Would you consider those evaluation points for the work you do, or tell me about how those things, which seem to have grown of more importance over the last maybe 15 years, how those things affect what you do,
So
or how they tie into what you do, maybe.
yeah, so my office is responsible for submitting. We do APR and we submit APR for
APR being academic progress rate,
right,
right?
exactly.
Okay, and then GSR being graduation success rate.
Yes.
Okay,
Very good.
excellent. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Yes, we are responsible for submitting APR. We facilitate the process of completing GSR. that
Okay.
submit button is hit by our institutional research folks. So it's a massive part of what athletic certification is responsible for.
Okay, excellent. And then APR is the one that can affect scholarships on teams, right? And it, I mean, I guess all you're doing is reporting
Yep.
information, right? So
I
it's
know
not
you're
like,
going. Nope.
hey,
Anything analysis, anything
yeah,
this 4-year rate. Nope.
or all that. Just report the information.
Athletics.
Here's what is.
As
Here's what is, and here it is.
That's
Right.
the theme. It is what it is. From my
It is
seat,
what it
it
is.
is what
Yeah.
it is for the most
Yeah,
part.
which is excellent. All right. The last question I'll ask you is about your role in Staff Senate. Now, you're serving as a president this year. How long have you been on Staff Senate?
3. So it's a 3-year term. So I'm in my 3rd year.
3rd year. So tell me about that role over the last 3 years and really the role of President A, but also just in general, the role of the Staff Senate on campus.
So the role of Staff Senate is we are a voice for our staff. We're a group of elected staff members who are elected by other staff members in our certain classification of our positions. And we represent staff across campus. So right now, Texas Tech is really having a lot of work in the strategic alignment space, a lot of work, and strategic planning. And so we're represented in those spaces. I actually, as the president, have a monthly meeting with the president of the university.
Okay.
So he can stay aware of what the work we're doing, and I can bring anything that I need to him. That's been a great relationship thus far. And then we have a series of committees where we just have different areas. We have a caregiver committee that is currently working on improving our mother-friendly rooms on campus. We've got an issues committee where staff members can submit an issue online, and we'll do some work to try to find a solution or a resource for them to have their issue addressed. Maybe not solved, but heard in some cases.
100%.
We have a committee that is dedicated to humanity and impact and togetherness for our Texas Tech community. We have, you've got your board, your president, your vice, or your president-elect, secretary, treasurer. So we've got scholarships and awards that we hand out. So we've got a staff emergency fund that we manage, where folks who are having an emergency of some sort that they might need some additional financial assistance, they can apply and get up to $500 to help in that space. So we do a lot of great things on behalf of the staff. We have speakers come to our meetings to just kind of give us some information, and our job is to disseminate that to our areas and to the folks that we work with. The presidency has been probably one of the more rewarding things of my career. I have grown. I set out with a goal of what I wanted to get out of it, and I got that out of it, which was just to make me more comfortable in certain rooms and in certain settings with folks, and that's been great. We're kind of revamping, I wouldn't say revamping, we're kind of like drilling back down into our purpose and making sure that the bylaws are aligned with what we're doing and all those kinds of things. So It has been really rewarding for me personally to be able to work in this space and work across campus and meet people and learn about folks. So I'm grateful for the opportunity. I'm grateful that I was elected to be in that position.
Yeah, that's excellent. And how big is the staff senate?
We have about a little over 50 members. It varies a little bit, but between 50 and 60.
A little over 50, between 50 and 60 members. And how big is the staff at Texas Tech?
4,000, a little over 4,000.
4,000, right? So this is a committee of less than 10% of the staff, and damn near just 1% of the staff, right? And you were elected to it, so it shows how much that they respect you on campus to bring you on.
Yeah, I was grateful. Like I said, I was grateful for that opportunity, for sure.
Right, which is excellent. 2 quick questions here. Do you interact much with Brian Shannon, the FAR there at Texas Tech. He's somebody that I've grown to know over the last maybe decade in terms of the work I've done with football coaches and now really college athletics adjacent. Do you interact with much with the FAR, and how tied to that position are you in athletic certification, or is there any overlap?
We communicate with Brian from this position sometimes.
Okay.
I would say it's not a daily thing. I think he communicates with athletics a little bit more with some of the challenges or issues or good things that are going on over there. But from this position, he's really just a resource for us if we need anything, or like when I'm completing GSR, he's kind of the go-between me and the president to get signatures and all those kinds of things. So he's a resource for us. I see him. I talk to him. I communicate with him. I know who he is for sure. Mm-hmm. But it's just not a lot of day-to-day interaction that we have to have.
Type situation. Okay, excellent. Final question here. Mm-hmm. From my position, getting to know you during this course, I consider you a leader.
Thank you.
But the question is, are you a leader in college athletics? Are you a leader in higher education? Or is it a combination of both? What do you consider yourself?
Wow, great question. I would consider myself both.
Okay.
Right now, I would consider myself both because I straddle this line. I'm in the registrar's office. I'm outside of athletics. I lead this team, my athletic certification team, my direct people.
Yes, ma'am.
Through something that is one of the most critical pieces of the college athletic space.
Yeah.
And a lot of folks don't even realize we exist. But exactly. I'm telling you, if we don't do what we're supposed to do,
it's a mess.
It's
right?
a whole thing. If we don't do it right, we don't have very much room for error at all.
Right.
And so I have to be in a position to lead this group and then really facilitate a lot of what's going on with compliance and academics and the college community and here. So I do see myself as a leader in college athletics, even though I'm not over there.
Excellent.
But and then the campus, I'm staff senate president. I have to see myself as a leader in that space.
Leader on campus.
I can't avoid that one.
Can't avoid it. And it's all sounds like from this conversation, it's something that you've earned and people respect you for your leadership.
I hope so.
Well, Carol, this has been an excellent conversation. I really appreciate you joining us here on the One Question Leadership Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. That was Carol Bonner. Carol is the Associate Registrar for Athletic Certification and Eligibility at Texas Tech. And of course, I am Tai Brown with One Question. And keep in mind, the role of a leader is to create and maintain an environment that people want to be a part of. And as always, be better tomorrow than you are today. This episode of the One Question Leadership Podcast is produced by Spades Media Group, solving problems using creative leadership.